Hi, it's the girl out there right here with you. It's me, Cindy. And this week we are here again with the great and wonderful Larry. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Oh, look how casual you are.
I'm excited to be here. I'm super nervous. I don't know why.
Oh, I love it. You know what? I think that's the first thing, right? Just say, I'm super nervous. I'm going to just take it out. I always say to people, like when I'm having conversations with them, wherever, like just say the first things that you're thinking. And then when we put those in a bucket, we just put them away then.
I'm just stoked to be here. I'm excited to answer questions. I think I'm an open book. So I don't know. Anytime someone's recording anything, my initial instinct is to just be nervous.
It's on the record forever.
No going back.
You know what? It was so great the last time you were on. I think what I said to you was there were so many conversations after. So many people were just felt almost like there was this way that they could kind of peer in and hear without having to ask the questions themselves, which I really liked from my audience, right? That people were like, I just didn't realize, or, Larry was able to share things in a way that I hadn't thought of before. And the way you spoke was so non-judgmental. Like you just were like, look at your face. You just were able to say, like, I get it if you're going to be trying, I get it if this is, the space you're in. And it was nice for people.
I mean, I just don't see the point of getting mad at and I say that, but I did in the beginning when I first came out. I was so raw and so sensitive that I took offense to everything that everyone said and did. And, I'm learning not to do that anymore. But to come from a place of judgment is to just give, you're not giving people a chance, and so many people don't know, or they want to know. And then when, if somebody who's trans, especially, comes from a place of judgment, even if that person is judging you, you want to meet people where they're at. And if that person is judging you, that's just a reflection of how they feel about themselves. It has nothing to do with you. Most of the time, people really do want to get to know you, and they are curious. And unfortunately, there is this paranoia that a lot of us, and I say us, trans, I can only speak for myself, right? There's a lot of paranoia that I had and still have sometimes, thinking that someone is trying to trap me or something in a conversation, and they're trying to judge me, or they're trying to condemn, especially in the South, trying to condemn me. And that's not necessarily always what's happening.
Yeah. And I think that's what really opened up for me was after our conversation was this realization. And I relate it even to myself, almost this coming out of being intuitive, right? How so many of us, it's basically all of us, all of us are hiding. And although, you've been hiding in one space, I think every single one of us have been hiding in one way or another. And I was listening after, to a podcast, and it was a group of people that had gone, they were non-binary, and they were saying, I went to this museum, and I don't know where the museum was, but it was basically a whole museum, and it was all showing people, you might even know this museum, but they were just basically showing walls upon walls of people's the freedom of themselves, and showcasing. And there was a whole bunch of 12-year-olds there, and how they all could walk and see expressions of other people, and how free it was. And this person just said, I stood in this space and cried. And how beautiful it was to be able to see this showcased in such a way. I listened to that podcast and I cried. Not because I could relate to that story. I could relate to the words of, I could imagine myself being able to see how free it would be, a bunch of children wanting to say that they were intuitive and not understanding it, and then being able to be in a space where everyone there was like, I understand you, I understand you. And that's what she was saying. She was like, I couldn't have even imagined at the age of 12 everyone's saying you're okay. So I understood at that level that we all just want to be seen.
As you were talking, that's all I was thinking is like, yeah, we're all kids. We all just are big kids who want to be seen and validated in a way. And like you said something, you said, I understand you. And like to be understood is like the human dilemma, because everybody wants to be understood. It would be so nice to not have to like explain anything to anyone and have somebody just meet you and understand. And there are those soul connections that exist, and that's why those are so special, because you're like, oh, I see you, I see you, you know. But that doesn't happen all the time. And I just always go back to like, you have to give people a chance, and you have to give yourself a chance. You know, if you want to be seen, then you have to give people a chance to see you. And sometimes they can't, and that's okay. And like, you get to see yourself, like we were talking in the beginning before we started recording about being reborn. You know, the best thing is to see yourself, and then through your own eyes, like you just get to experience your life. And when you meet other people, once you see yourself and understand yourself a little more from a place of non-judgment, then you don't judge other people, because you're like, oh, there's another human, they're fucked up and flawed just like I am, they're trying to figure it out just like I am. They want to be seen just like I do.
Totally. I just oh, am I muted? No. I think I've taken from that conversation is that I want to understand more and more, and have listened to so many more podcasts and more information, and listening to it all. And I know you've always been so good at saying like, this is just how I interpret it, and this is my take on it. And there was a whole thing on the language. The language of non-binary, and it was fascinating. We could talk a little bit about it, but they were talking about how English language is, and how hard this is, and then how in different languages they have, you know, in let's say in Portuguese and in Spanish, and then all these different languages, it's some are really confusing and then some are not. And how this has been such an interesting thing as everybody's trying to define themselves, but how every single country has also had a different time because all of the languages. Oh,
It's super interesting. I never thought about it. Like, those are the things that I don't think about. And then when someone says it to me, I'm like, like my brain explodes a little bit inside, because I'm like, holy shit, I mean, I know that there are, you know, in Native American tribes, we'll say this is something that I've learned. Like, there are two spirits, and there are other genders, and there are very, I don't want to say progressive thinking, but you know, just a really incredible way of life that they experience. And that was one of the first things that was told to me when I came out, was like, hey, you're not weird, you know, this is something that exists in different cultures and different things. um, but I never thought specifically about like the language of it. But everything, we have to also consider that language is a is a construct that was built within a binary system, if that makes sense. So like, there's a male and a female version of things in Spanish, but that's because it's in a binary system that there's a male and a female.
yeah.
So there hasn't been like an update in the link, like it's not an app, so they can't just like update, you know what I mean? Like, they can't just update it and be like, oh, well, this is what we say now because of this. But I mean, to tell a story of how things do develop, I don't know if it's like out of place, but I do want to share this, that kids are the easiest people to understand and grasp the concept of transgender. My sister-in-law, we just talked about it. It's taken a long time to tell, you know, that side of the family. And um, the first question was like, well, what the fuck am I going to tell my kids? And I was like, well, you can tell your kids whatever you want to tell them. That's not my place. But, you know, I don't want them to call me, you know, my dead name, my aunt, my dead name, because it's like too feminine like reinforcements. Um, and so she was like, okay, can they call you L? And I was like, yeah, they can call me Bob. They just can't call me my dead name. So I thought that was really interesting to say like, oh, well, they're going to call me L, you know, like for them, they don't, it's not an issue for them. They're not like, oh, well, you're this person, I don't understand. And it's just really interesting, like to look at children, like when you think about languages and how kids learn languages when they're really young. Like, what if we also teach these things to our children when they're really young instead of waiting for them to figure it out, or to seek, like I did, to seek representation, like I found through Instagram, where I saw all of these people who were, and I had met lots of transgender people in my life, but I was just so blocked and removed from my own identity at that point. You know, it's just, I just wanted to share that story because it's just really
No, I
interesting.
like that because I think that's, I mean, that's the thing where we have had, it's all the stereotypes and all, right? Like all the things that are within us. And that's what I was learning so much about it is, and it does, it makes you go like, to sit with and go like, yeah, we have all the things of, I mean, you can go into archetypes, right? Of like, you have the mother in you and the baby in you and the inner child, all the things that we have. It really is unlearning all on such a big level. And, you know, I really have appreciated all the learning where so many people in non-binary have said, we have had this ingrained in us, you know, man, woman. So it is okay to understand that this will take a little bit of time for us to go, okay. They, MX, right, is what that's something new. What is MX? Look at you laughing.
Look at you, because you're learning neopronouns, and
I
I really
am.
like it.
I'm really,
I
really.
I still don't, neopronouns still confuse me like beyond, because I'm still, I think what's so interesting is like in the journey to understand transgender, like it really is to understand myself and to understand like
Yes.
my own journey.
Yes.
And like even the medical center that I go to is like a big gay medical center. It's called Magic City Wellness, and it's like queer people go there. It's just not like a normal doctor's office, right? Like it's special
Okay.
and unique for us.
It's called Magic Center?
City, Magic City Wellness.
I feel like that's the best place everyone should go.
And there's like this gorgeous mural on the wall in rainbow colors out front, and it's like, well, not out front, but like right where the door is. It's, I'll have to take a picture next time I'm there and send it to you
Yes.
so you can share it on your social media, because it's just this like big happy place. And I wish that the world could, I don't remember why I was even talking about this, but I wish that the world could be like this, because
Yes.
they greet you by, you know, by your chosen name. And so it's just, I don't know, it's really cool. It's like, what were we even talking about? I got off topic.
The MX and
Neopronouns. Okay, so
neopronouns.
trying to understand all of the neopronouns is for me like trying to understand me being non-binary. Like it's taking time for me, because it's like I came out, but it's not like I came out and I was like, I know exactly what this means. Like
Right.
I was like, I don't know what any of this means, but I know that I'm not this or this. And there's a name for what that means, and it's not binary. And so I was like, now I get to figure out whatever that means to me. And because non-binary is so different for so many different people, like it's, you know, there are people who fall to one side of that binary or to the other side of the binary. There's people who are in the middle, like I am super masculine presenting,
Right.
you know, and when it comes to that binary system. But if you were just looking kind of in the middle, then people would call me androgynous.
Yeah, I know that's what, and so that's where it's the MX.
Instead of Mr. Yeah.
Oh, that's where it falls into. Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out. Because there's
So
others.
like, did I tell you what Jake calls me for like our dog?
No.
So instead of like mom or mommy, he calls me non-B. So it's
Oh,
like non-B loves you to my dog.
okay. So here's another question I had, which was really, I was very curious about. So if you are non-binary, meaning you're in the flow, you're in that flow, right? What so why then, meaning that you go by they? Yes. Then why is it that you would say I?
So if someone is referring to you, it's they, them, theirs, instead of like saying she or her or hers. So it's like,
But you still are I. Like, so, okay. So it's not, you still
yeah.
are.
So like when I'm talking about myself, it's me or I. But like if you were telling a story about Larry, you would be like, oh, they left their shirt here.
Right.
Wait,
It's still,
they, them, theirs. Okay, so I told them that they left their shirt here. I had to like see, I have to like think shit through. Um,
well, I was just
yeah,
thinking because it's plural if it's plural if you are referring to they, them,
there.
they,
Yeah.
but it's singular if you're referring to yourself.
Yeah. And it's less that it's plural and it's more that it's just an ambiguous word. So
Ambiguous.
it's not he, right? Like saying he, him, his, like that's a man, and it's not saying she, her, hers, like that's a woman. It's
It's
they, them, theirs, because you're like, I love that you're like you're in the flow. That is the best way I could describe my gender identity. If someone asks me, is it's in the with the hand movement.
just like this, just like this.
Some days I'm over here, some days I'm over here, some days I'm right in the middle.
Well,
Like,
the more I've read about it, that's what seems to make the most sense. It's just that you're in it. Which it's interesting because, well, I'm going to jump all over the place, but I was listening to one person, which I actually did think it was interesting what they were saying. They said they didn't like non-binary, the term non-binary, because they thought that non-binary was negative. It was a negative term to start to refer to themselves. And they referred to themselves originally as queer. And so they felt that why are we already putting ourselves in a negative term? And so to begin to always refer to ourselves as non is basically saying we are already non-existent. And I was like, oh, I do. I like it. Then the debate with the other person was we want to go against what others are, right? And so this person was saying, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, can we at least acknowledge that we are existent and we are. And so by saying we're non is already putting in our heads subconsciously that we are non. It was just an interesting thought.
I totally disagree, but it's
Yes.
a super interesting. I mean, this is me getting older. I'm like, I don't agree, but I don't have to hate it. It's like it's
Yeah.
super interesting to me that somebody would feel that way, because for me it's super empowering where I'm like, yeah, fuck that. I'm not part of your binary system. Like you are a society that we live in that tells me I have to be a woman because I have a vagina, or I have to, or that I can't be a man because I don't have a penis, or or that I can't be non-binary because what does that even mean? Like, so
Yes.
saying non-binary to me is kind of like throwing up a middle finger at either side and being like, listen, like I don't have to check the box for you.
Right.
I don't have to make sense to you. I don't even make sense to myself a lot of days. So like I definitely don't have to make sense to you. Like
Right.
that is a given.
Yes. Totally.
But it
Oh,
is really interesting that
yeah.
someone would feel that way. I mean, I feel like, I don't know, I hope they know that they're definitely not that they're really incredible. And
Oh, it felt like this was somebody who was older, 55. I'm getting closer to that, but like 50.
yeah,
Like sorry, 55 or something, who had been, I think, in this for a long time, felt quite solid. And the
got it.
conversation was just, something to consider. And so wasn't willing to go to that name, but something was just saying it was and not didn't sound defensive, more just a thought to provoke conversation. It was an interesting conversation. I liked it. Me on the outside, I'm more just like, wow, I'm really liking these conversations. I'm gonna
Well,
bring all back to Larry.
it's interesting that you say that, because it's so something that I could see someone in the older generation saying, because they have been around and in their time, right? Like, I hate to even say that, but like in the time that they came out, things were different. And you couldn't necessarily be like, hey, I'm transgender. Like, but to tell somebody you're queer at that time would have been a little more acceptable, where now we do have a representation and it's a little more acceptable to say that. But we've also, because of said representation, kind of taken this term and been like, this is ours. Like, this is who we are, and you can't place us in your binary. And to me, it's like, this is so stupid. It's very punk rock to me, where it's like, fuck your binary, fuck your system. This is who we are. Anti-establishment. Not that, but it's, it's like, you can't put us in this box.
No, I do. I agree. I understand what you're saying. So I like it. I have since too, we talked a little bit last time about pansexual, which I love the term pansexual. And I mean, everything, right? I'm like, oh, pansexual. Larry told me about pansexual. And so somebody had told me about that their child has said they are pansexual. So I'd said, oh, okay, great. Like, congratulations. And so I had said, like, what does that mean to your child? And they had said what it meant. Like, some days the child feels one way, that some days the child feels like they're going to wear a dress. Some days the child feels like they want to date a girl. And some days the child wants to date a boy or whatever. And so I was like, well, shouldn't this just be what we all do? Ultimately, like, right? Like, I keep going back to, ultimately, if we were to, I mean, I guess this is the bigger question. Ultimately, when I heard this woman say this about her child, I was like, it sounds like that is the way we if we were to really deconstruct everything.
What would the world look like if we taught children to just be who they are, not who we want them to be or who we expect them to be or who we would like them to be, but if we just let them be, right? Like, if we just let them do what they do and we just love them and nurture them, and like, what the fuck would happen if we just tried that for a change? Because it's so frustrating sometimes to know, like, even, and I love her so much, but even with my sister-in-law, that her first thought would be, what am I going to tell the children? And it's like, you don't have to really tell them anything. They're kids.
Yeah.
And they're going to have their own opinion, even if you sit them down and you tell them whatever it is you want to tell them, however you want to tell them. They're still their own little humans, and they're going to absorb that information and take it however they want. And, and you can be there to support them in that. But also, what would happen if you had if you had a child and you assigned that child male at birth, and you made that child only wear male clothes, and you wouldn't, even if he came to you and said, I really want to wear a dress, and I'll only wear it in the house, and you still were like, no, you can't wear a fucking dress. Like, you're denying that child something. And also, it doesn't go away. Like, just because you tell a child no doesn't mean that just goes away. I mean, let's fast forward to me. Just because my parents were like, no, you can't have Ninja Turtles, and no, you can't play with, boy shit, doesn't mean that I don't dress like a boy now and that I'm not non-binary. Mm-hmm. Doesn't work, like, this shit doesn't work. So it's, what would happen if we just allowed kids to try stuff and be who they are? And like, yeah, obviously within reason, like, you're their parent and they're a child. I'm not saying like let them do anything reckless, but if they want to present, especially the least harmful thing is clothing. If they want to present the way they want to present, then let them fucking do it. Yeah. As long as they're not going to school naked, like, what is the problem? Yeah. Or as long as they're not walking around the house, like, it's just, I wish so much. And especially, it's like, I don't have children. I never wanted children, but it's because of this, because I wish that people would do better with children. Mm-hmm. as it relates to gender fluidity, sexuality, and gender expression.
Mhm. I agree. I just think that was the thing that just keeps ringing. Like it's like, well, that just seems to make sense. Like, oh, okay, yeah, some days they like this, some days they like that. Like, yeah. And some children will choose, like, basically it's like ice cream. Some children will then, if they then decide it, it's like some days they like chocolate, sometimes they like vanilla, sometimes they like 31 flavors, but that's that child's choice. But if you say you can only like chocolate, then some children will be like, I want 31 flavor.
I was that kid, except I was the kid that's like, then I want all of them.
Oh,
I want all three. I want every 31 flavor plus the chocolate you have in the back and the vanilla I know you're holding out on me.
yeah, it's such a fascinating thing. I just and it's interesting hearing more and more like what cracks open. And then I'm like, oh, that person, it like, it's so like, I just still remember you saying at the beginning of the last podcast, like sexuality, what did you say? Like sexuality is one line and um
It's everything's a spectrum. So there's a
every,
spectrum of sexuality, and then
yeah,
there's a spectrum of gender. There's a spectrum of how you present.
yes,
Like, I mean, it's everything, right? Like, so the gender spectrum is I'm non-binary, you're cisgendered. The
yes.
sexuality spectrum is I'm pansexual because I like fucking everybody and everything. I don't know who you are, what you like. Um, and then as far as presentation goes, I am androgynous and you are very feminine.
Right. And that was, but you before, like even seeing you now compared to how you were before, like even like 6 months ago. So comfortable now. You're so comfortable.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, it's so nice to see. It's so
Some
nice.
days, some
Oh,
days I'm very comfortable. Some days I'm like the most uncomfortable in my body. But I'm, and that's called dysphoria. And like I'm working on that. I have a lot more euphoric days where I feel, very happy, very validated, very affirmed. It's why I go to the medical center I go to because it's very affirming. Like you walk in, they say, "Hey, Larry." I sit down, they call my name, Larry, they refer to me as they, them, theirs. If they're saying something in front of me, like it's just a really affirming experience. Whereas other medical offices are like still trying to remember that I don't go by my dead name anymore. And like they're working on it. My gynecologist office is really working on it.
so when you say a dead name, what did you have, like, did you have a ceremony or do you just die? Does it just die?
I love you. I think that's so funny. I think there is like an internal, and I'm not joking, like a mourning process that you
Yes.
go through after you come out where you're like, oh fuck, like I've been denying this person the whole time and this is who I really am, and I don't identify with, and that's part of it, is like I just don't identify with that name anymore, because when I think about that name, I think about a girl. I think about, not really. I think about someone who's not binary pretending to be a girl with like long eyelashes and long nails and all the just, I was so extra. Not that that stuff is extra, but I was extra with the way I had it. And I was trying so hard. Like if I look like a girl, I'm a girl. If I look like a girl, I'm a girl. If I act like a girl, if I hang out with mean girls, and I'm a girl, and I tried so hard and it didn't work, and so when I think of that name, I just think of that person and I think of that sadness and that darkness. And when I think of the name Larry, everything is light and everything is hope. And yeah, there's a lot of darkness there still too, but it's like a beacon of light for me where I'm like, oh, I can always come home to Larry. Like I don't have to live in this space of like feeling like I'm alone and like I don't belong, and the more comfort, the ease that you see is the more I put myself out there and I meet people who are trans. And that's what's been happening, is the more I am me and present as me and don't hide it. And usually I have like, I mean, I have it right here, but like I always have a they them pin somewhere on me at all times. And I have like a bolo tie that says, hello, my pronouns are they, them, theirs. And I wear that at work. I put myself out there. So like when I meet somebody and they're trans, it's like immediately we know. And it's been really cool.
Yeah, I no, I love that. I just think, again, hearing more about people who have had like the top surgery, who've had like listening to that and what that actually meant, like the letters, and to their partners who have had to process that with them, and all of that. It was interesting listening to one husband who had been with them for, and you can speak, I know we talked a little bit about that last time, but it was interesting listening where he had said they had been together for 14 years. And so he was like, are those still part of like what, like, am I allowed to touch those anymore? Like, can I play with them? Do I touch them? Like, are they not allowed? Like, so it's such a true question, because he's wanting to be respectful of what that means, because it's like to that, like, they don't want that anymore. So then, right? Huge.
It depends on the person. I mean, not every non-binary person has surgery of
Yeah.
any kind. I had hysterectomy because getting my period made me suicidal, because I was like, I'm not a girl, why is this happening? But I do know a lot of non-binary people who don't, their period does not bother them at all. And those people have, some of them have had top surgery because their breasts did bother them so much. I'm mixed about it. Like, part of me would really like to do it. The other part of me does not want to have another surgery because it's just a bitch. And for me, my boobs don't make me suicidal. I don't like them. I don't really care for them. I don't sexualize them. If Jake touches them, it's like for him. Like, I just literally don't care about them.
Right.
But that's just me. I don't, I respect anybody that makes the decision to have surgery or to not have surgery. It's kind of like hormones, where like some people do it, some people don't. Some people start them and then go off of them, vice versa. Like, it just, everyone's journey is so unique and so different. And it's why I love trans people, because everyone's journey is so unique to them.
Yeah, like, I think that's, listening to it is like, you're always in this place of trying to understand, like, listening to that, where you're always going, I need to understand more about myself. I need, like, ooh, cracking open again, like,
Well, and discovering what you like. I mean, I've been alive for almost 38 years, and I just started living a year and a half ago.
mm-hmm.
So it's like, fuck, like, I'm like a child. Like, I have, one of my favorite things to do is go to an arcade, and I like light up the second I'm in an arcade, because it's like I get to have the kid, the childhood that I never got to have. And I also at the same time get to be the adult that, like, I never got to really, I mean, my parents tried, but like, I get to be the adult that polices me now. And like, I had ice cream at 2:30 this afternoon because I felt like having ice cream. And as I was eating it, I was like, this is the best part about being a big kid and like a small adult. No guilt. It was my lunch.
So true. So true.
Yeah. I was like, this is what I want. I'm going to do this. Like, I don't,
Yes.
where before, and just a perfect example, like before, when I was living as, as that person before Larry, like, I wouldn't have allowed myself to have ice cream. I took myself so seriously. Oh my God. There was no room for error. Like, there was no room to live. It was
So,
all just like,
you mean
so
like a year and a half ago, you would have been
Mhm.
routine, structure, and like no room for mistakes.
Yeah, no room to live.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just was, I had subscribed to a set of beliefs, and I thought, that like that was the key to happiness, was to just like follow suit, show up, do what you're supposed to do and like not be your authentic self.
It's so incredible to see that, like, from there to here, like, in each time, right? How much further you are to yourself. Like, it's crazy.
Even since we last spoke, I feel like it's,
Yeah.
I don't know, like more and more becoming me.
Oh, 100%. Like, so when you go into this magic hospital, which I now need to see, like,
That's possible.
yeah, I do you like everything I say?
It makes it sound like it's Hogwarts.
Yes. Wouldn't
It's,
that's the vision I want for myself.
I mean, that's how it feels. It feels like you're going into this like literally magic place because everyone is so affirming and smiles at you and is not clinical. Like, you know, doctors' offices are just so clinical and they have to be, and I get that, but sometimes, especially as someone who's trans, you're like, I need you to have emotion and understand that I'm a person and that being in a doctor's office makes me uncomfortable. You know, and that's not something that's really respected, but it is at Magic City Wellness. Like,
Magic
and
City.
they have so Magic City, I guess, is like what they call Birmingham, Alabama. So there's attached to Magic City Wellness, there is something called Magic City Acceptance Center, and they're now a school. I'm trying to remember how old they go. It's like kindergarten through, not kindergarten, middle through high school, I think is what it is. But it's like this incredible school for queer kids, and it's like based on art, and it's small classrooms, and they're accepting, and like teachers are trans and students can be, and there's gender neutral bathrooms, and it's the future, and I'm shocked that they have it here in Alabama.
That
But
is incredible.
it makes me so happy that there's, I mean, things are going to change, you know, times, if they're changing in Alabama, they're definitely changing elsewhere. And the only part of me that misses California misses stuff like that, because shit like this like already exists down there. Like they
Right.
don't, they're like, oh, you're a queer kid, like we're so happy you're here. Like they just love, you know, it's, yeah.
Well, that's what I think listening to it, right? And currently you have an entire rainbow all over you. I don't know if you've got like a pure, like, have you got some sort of crystal?
I've got these little butterfly stickers. Can you even,
Oh, like, what is it? Nice.
they're little butterfly hologram like
You're suddenly
sun
talking about
catchers.
a magic city, and all of a sudden you are a rainbow.
It's right somewhere right there.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's it, like knowing just all of these things that are available, right? That were never available to 35 years ago or whatever it was, or 20 years ago. And to know that it is becoming so much more accessible and so much more real. And so that the things that I think you might have been doing and other people were going to pain in order, you know, things that were pain inducing. Does that make sense? In order to not feel the real you. Do you know what I mean?
Like when I was a drug addict,
Yeah.
or I was like, wait, like when I was a drug addict, or when I was a prostitute, or when I was in a cult, or when I converted religions because
Yes.
I thought that that would change it. I mean, like I have lived, I feel like so many fucking lives to
Yes.
just get to Larry.
Yeah.
Like to try to do everything else to not be Larry. And like finally it's like, fuck, I don't have
Yes.
to do any of that anymore. Like
Yes.
it occurred to me that I would be 40 and like wouldn't have come out. And then I would have been 50 and wouldn't have come out. And then I would have been 60 and wouldn't have come. And then like I would have died or waited till my parents died. You know, I had my
Yes.
therapist told me about somebody, one of her patients that had waited until their parents died to come out, and like that they were in their like late 60s. And I was like, I cannot be in my late, like I can't do that. And
Yeah.
also I don't want to rob my parents, as uncomfortable as it is for them. I don't want to rob them from getting to actually like know who their kid is,
Mhm.
you know, which I think sometimes is good and sometimes is bad for them.
No, but I think that's the truest thing, right? Is that people will often say, like, I don't want to put my parent through it, or I'm just gonna wait, or it's fear keeps us in so many situations. fear of really uncomfortable conversations, fear of losing somebody, but yet you lose yourself. And so in order to keep, as you've said to me so many times, like I would lose myself in order to keep others. And I recall, I'd said this in the group I work with, is disappoint as many people as you have to disappoint before you disappoint yourself. And it made some people uncomfortable, but I was like, well, how often are you disappointing yourself every single day in order to keep all of them happy? Stuff it.
And it doesn't keep people happy.
Because
That's
not.
the delusion, is like, part of me looked around at my family and was like, okay, well, some of you are fucking miserable, and me being miserable is definitely not helping y'all. And the rest of you are just trying to be happy, and so am I.
Yeah.
And like, why would I, like, it just didn't help anybody, let alone myself. But it wasn't helping anyone for me to hide
No.
anymore, and my dad definitely is the only person now on like this planet who still calls me by my dead name and doesn't use the right pronouns. And he's 75 and, not going to change. So when we talk, it's very short, and, it is what it is, but I don't personalize it anymore. I'm not like, well, he doesn't love me and he's rejecting me. No, he is definitely rejecting the idea that I am transgender, because he cannot fathom that his daughter isn't his daughter. And
Right.
that's not on me. That's like on him and his identity at being a parent and whatever that means for him at this stage of my life, his life. Like I'm really grateful that I'm 37 so that I can see that, because part of me is like, God, I wish I would have come out when I was a kid. But when you're a kid, I mean, the fear of rejection is so real, and that's why you don't do it when you're a kid, because you're so afraid of being rejected. And then it, like, time just compounds and keeps going, and then you're like, well, now I'm really going to be rejected. People aren't going to believe me.
Yes.
It's that thought process where, like I said, what would happen if we just loved kids for who they are?
I know. And I think truly listening to all the things you say, and now seeing it so much with all these younger people who are just expressing it, the more we make this, as I say, soul stream to mainstream, the more soulful people that are just like, this is just it. This is just like shirts off, everybody. Like, guess what? Inside, we're all, I mean, inside, we're all just real. Like, yeah. And the more, like, I would love, like, the shout out I would just say for everyone, and as uncomfortable as they are, after having that I mean, the first time I met you, I just knew I needed to talk to you. I needed to connect with you. I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad I followed that. And then, having you on the podcast, and because of the conversations that it has led, privately, and, just little conversations, whatever that has been, just so you know how many people that ripple effect that has led from that conversation, as well as support it has, brought in for people who have teenagers, etc. Larry, you have reached many people, but also what it's done for me. Sorry, like I have researched, I have listened, you have opened me up so much, because I want to make sure I know and understand. So I appreciate you. And I know you always wonder, like, what is it all for and who's it all for? You are forever expanding people. And if I can say that for anyone, just to please go and listen to people, go and learn more. So I'm forever grateful for you, forever. And so if you wanted to share with people, just, one thing or one little bit, what would that be?
I'm very great. I was trying not to cry. Very grateful for you, and for growing and learning even the things that, like, the questions that you've posed for me in this last hour, that I'm like, damn, I never thought about that. Now that's going to lead to a conversation that I have with my partner, and expand that. And I think, one of the things that I said very early on in the podcast last time was, you asked what the main question is that like cisgendered people always ask, and I made a comment and I made a judgment, and so I would like to also say something about that. I said that the thing that people always ask is, are you going to go all the way? Are you going to, become a man? And I used to get so aggravated, even though I told you that I give people grace. I used to get so aggravated with that statement and that question because it would, one, reiterate that I'm a girl, that I'd be going, quote unquote, all the way to a boy, meaning that I'm starting as a girl. And number two, that I just never stopped to realize that what that means is that they subscribe to the binary. That it has nothing to do with me, that it's that they believe there's male and female. So if I'm not female, then I must be male, right? It doesn't mean necessarily that, like, because yeah, for them non-binary doesn't really exist because they believe in the binary. So it's less that I don't exist to them and more that they truly just have a different belief system than I do. And that's something that I'm also learning, that like I have this belief system that I'm, trans, and that trans people belong, and that we should have equal representation, and that we should have, health affirming healthcare and all these things. And like the opposite of that is that there are people who believe that we shouldn't.
Mm.
And I have to accept that those people exist in the same way that I want them to accept that I do. Mm-hmm. And that is the single hardest thing that I'm working through right now. Mm-hmm. And so I want whoever is listening to know that like like people don't have it all figured out, and like I definitely don't have anything figured out. I'm still every single day learning how to have that grace that I talked about and give that to other people in the same way that I want them to give that shit to me. So have grace with other people and like with yourself more than anybody.
That's beautiful. I honestly it is beautiful. I think that's true, is always to be okay to say that, well, honestly, it's like you're the truth of this. To be okay to change.
Yeah. It's totally okay to change, and it's okay to change your mind.
Change
and
your mind.
About anything. I mean, about literally anything, like it's not gonna happen, but like if I wanted to change my name back, like I could fucking do that. Like it's my life, like I get to do that. Would people be super, super annoyed? Probably, but it wouldn't matter. If that's okay, what I desired, then that's what I would do. And that's what I think is like within reason, as long as you're not hurting anybody.
Yes.
Live your life, know that this is, no matter how old you are, like this is your life. Yes. And especially if you are a kid, like you obviously can't go drive a car, and you can't, stay out late, and you can't do all that shit. But if you're a kid and you hear this, like you also get to have your own identity, and at a certain age, you really get to have that identity. So just don't deny who you are just because you are around people who can't see you. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean you don't exist. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For any age.
Yes. Oh, always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It's always just fun, and I don't know how the time went by so fast, but
no, I know, but it didn't. It's always good. I cannot wait to post this one. Thank you. I will see you soon.